I still need to know, are they planning to pack the courts? Kamala Harris got a pass again on that one. Joe Biden got a pass recently on that one. So let's hope at some point they answer that question, because it's kind of an important one. But nonetheless, a pretty good, informative debate. I'm still not crazy about the style. I still would prefer to really sink our teeth into one issue at a time rather than try to jam everything in there. But nonetheless, we did hear from each of the candidates their positions. And bottom line, here's what you got going on. Two pretty competent people. I'll give them both that. But two very different ideals on what this country should be and how we should get there. You have on the one hand a socialist. Basically, I mean, you heard all about how taxes are going up. She admitted effectively that because businesses need to pay more. I'm sorry, small businesses that have been struggling and that in many cases can't even get the PPP loans, they should not be paying more in this kind of environment. We need them because they are the lifeblood of our economy. So that whole proposal, and good for Pence. He was very strong on this topic of taxes and economic growth. He has a strong foundation in that. And I applaud him for the policies that he talked about and put forward. But nonetheless, it's a challenging time, right? The reality is coronavirus came out of the blue and caused us to shut down almost the entire country. And so, of course, the economy is in bad shape. But you know what? The answer is not to tax everyone to try and improve things. The answer is not to keep everything shut down. The answer is to let the individual have some say in all this. It's good to see you all tonight. I am Trish Regan. Thank you for tuning into the Trish Regan Show. And again, Seth Barron, thank you for tuning in. Harris is always laughing. Everything is a joke to her. You know, a lot of people I noticed were commenting on how she was making a lot of facial expressions. I will tell you this. Mike Pence is like smooth as silk. I mean, nothing rattles him. I've interviewed him multiple times, and he stays on message. He knows what he wants to say, and out it comes, and never with a lot of drama, right? He's very even-keeled. She, on the other hand, I would say is also a skilled debater, but there's more drama in there. I mean, just the facial expressions alone, right? In some ways, I kind of look at the Harris-Biden, see, I keep doing that, Harris-Biden ticket, it's the Biden-Harris ticket, and think it's sort of miscast, right? Because she should be the one at the top of the ticket. The problem is they couldn't get her there because she couldn't make it through the primaries because she just, for whatever reason, didn't have that broad appeal. I don't know how Joe Biden had it, but somehow Kamala Harris was viewed as perhaps too polarizing, and she really didn't make it out of the pack, so to speak. But I'm troubled that we still cannot get an answer on the courts. You realize what that would do to our country, to our separation of powers. I mean, everything that we have had, right, for so long as a nation, and they would destroy it for political reasons. You're going to turn the court into the House of Representatives? That doesn't make any sense. Now, look, I get that they've got some material, shall we say, because the president is not as measured, say, as a Mike Pence in terms of what he says. He is a big personality, and what you see is what you get, for better or for worse. But I think he fundamentally believes in the power of capitalism, and that's what's so troubling right now. They're trying to make this a referendum on character, okay? So it's important that Americans see through that, and they come straight back to the policy itself, because the policy itself is what is going to determine our future. And if we get what they're hoping, which is a Democratic sweep, Oval Office, Senate, House of Representatives that they would keep, then look, all bets are off, because the system that we know and frankly have benefited from, and I'm not saying capitalism is perfect, believe me, I'm the first to tell you. You've heard me talk about the hourglass economy, right? With the middle class increasingly getting squeezed. Capitalism is not perfect, but it sure as heck beats the alternative. I've seen the alternative up close in Venezuela. And I'm not exaggerating when I say in 20 years' time, we could easily be that if we start going down this path. Free college. We heard about that tonight. She wants to be able to provide free college. I'm sorry. You know what? Not everybody should even go to college. I mean, college isn't really all that great anyway. Not all it's cracked up to be, okay? Really. I mean, we have all these kids going to college massive debt. She wants to provide free, 2-year colleges, community colleges, probably similar to what they do in California. But, that may not be the best thing for some people. Why can't you allow the individual that room, right? Why can't we ensure that people can go on in life, and you don't have to have a PhD, right, to be able to take care of your family, at least not in the America that we all know and love. Again, very good to have you all here. Buddy, thank you so much for doing it. Mercedes, less than 20 years. Yeah, I know. I just remember my first job was actually in finance, and we were trading Latin American sovereign debt, including Venezuela, and Chavez came to power. And it was like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. Oh, believe me, it was that bad. And then some, very, very quickly. But there's this fascination, right, if you would, by so many on the left. They just they love and appreciate all these socialist regimes. Hey, Bernie Sanders, lucky bride he had, he took her to the Soviet Union to celebrate their honeymoon. I mean, what is it? They have for so long been fascinated with this sort of redistribution of wealth that creates one class and one class only, the class of the bureaucrats, right? And so you have to be part of that class or forget it. Everybody else is kind of stuck. And as she talks about law and order, that was another subject that came up tonight, an important one. They're talking about things that frankly would hurt us as a society. I mean, there are kind of some basics out there, right, that we need in order to be prosperous. And one of them is to ensure, we expect our government to help ensure our safety. And if they can't do that, then, you can't, where are you going from there? You can't go anywhere from there. I'm curious what you guys thought in terms of who won this thing. I know it's kind of old-fashioned to say who won a debate. Frankly, I think these debates are getting very old-fashioned in feeling. Like I said, I think Susan Page did a heck of a lot better. Of course, she had a couple of people on stage that were a little bit more tame than what we saw last time around. But nonetheless, I need to know. Are they going to pack the court? I need to know why she thinks higher taxes on businesses is actually going to translate into better things for our economy. I mean, just look at what happened between 2016 and 2019. 3 years before coronavirus hit. Middle class wages went up. Median income went up. Unemployment went down. Inflation stayed steady, although I'd argue that the Fed has had a role in contributing to some inflation in the stock market, shall we say. Anyway, Pence hands down, Melissa says. Pence hands down. And then we see Seth saying Pence as well. Robert Justice Pence won. You guys, Pence was very strong. He was very strong. Very, very strong. And I think the thing is here with Pence is that he's on firm ground, right? Because he's talking about values, I think, that we as a nation have always depended on and held dear. And for the other side to kind of want to be, and this is the most extreme, by the way, they've ever been. This is a new kind of Democratic Party. This is not the party, of your grandparents' generation. This is a new Democratic Party that is really enthralled with the idea of basic income, for example. Kamala Harris actually introduced a bill with Bernie Sanders to provide everyone who's making less than $120K basic income, $2,000 a month, until at least 3 months after coronavirus ends. Of course, we'll never see coronavirus end in that kind of case. It's a hard circumstance, right, for Pence to be up against and for the president to be up against. Because this thing came out of the blue, came out of China, at least as far as we can tell, and did a number on us. But you know what's amazing? We've been rallying back. Again, when they let us go, right? When they let us get out there and do our thing and go to work, they need to find a way so that the people that can and don't have these vulnerabilities, right, in terms of pre-existing conditions, they should be able to go to work and take care of their families. I mean, the idea that they're shutting it all down, it's remarkable. I think we're going to look back at this time and realize this was one of the biggest infringements on our basic rights. They could have been smarter about this. And don't forget, we're a federalist system, right? So it was up to these governors. Governors like Cuomo, who made massive mistakes, they're not penalized for it. I mean, he comes out of this thing smelling like a rose, despite the fact that there were thousands of deaths, more deaths in New York than anywhere else. And he effectively sentenced so many elderly people in nursing homes to their death because he, as late as April, was still sending people with COVID-19 into the nursing homes. But does anybody say anything about that? No, 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 no. It's all President Trump's fault. He now has coronavirus himself. Wow. Anthony, it was planned because Fauci said it in front of Congress. It was coming. Dan saying Pence was farmer friendly. Harris was farmer friendly, maybe pharmaceutical company friendly. Farmer friendly is right. You know, Pence has that sort of down to earth sensibility about him. I met him years ago at a dinner for my former co-host, who's Larry Kudlow, who's now at the White House. And I thought, what a nice person he is. I remember being seated at a table that Mike Pence was at, and when his name came up as a possible vice presidential candidate, I thought, bingo, that is your guy. He's sort of, again, I would say very steady, very calm, very smart, very schooled on all international issues. I've been impressed with his knowledge on China. I've been impressed with his knowledge on Venezuela. Don't forget, he was the one leading the charge to try and do something about the socialists in Venezuela. He cares very deeply about that. I interviewed him down in Bogota, Colombia, about that very issue. He has been spot on with China, really coming out before anyone in a very detailed way, in a very detailed speech a couple of years ago, saying that China would be messing with our election. It wasn't Russia, it's China that we need to worry about. In fact, China would be much happier not to have a Trump-Pence administration. They'd be much happier with a Biden-Harris administration. Why? Because, well, life is easier. They can keep making money, but you know, we have to be careful because the more money they make, the bigger they become, the more entrenched we are with them, the more they steal our technology and effectively displace us in the world. I mean, it's not that far off, really and truly. We don't have a lot of time. They are actively campaigning to become the world's reserve currency. Let me tell you, being the world's reserve currency, there's like a cachet in that. Like, that's kind of something we want to keep, right? The US dollar. The reason why interest rates are so low, the reason why, in part, we have such a successful economy is not just all the good stuff that we have in terms of capitalism, ingenuity, all these things, right? It's also the fact that we enjoy the benefit of being the world's reserve currency as the US dollar. If we lost that, it would be truly horrendous. And it's not inconceivable. It's really not right now. Again, I want to ask you, the moderator unfortunately played favorites. You know, I tweeted out earlier in the evening that she was doing a really good job and couldn't we have had her last week? And then we got to that court question. And that's an obvious one to me. You got to ask it. And you know what? You got to get an answer. And I don't understand why nobody's willing to answer that question. I guess because they're willing to pack the courts and they don't want to be on record saying that. Just be honest, guys. Tell us what you're doing. And please, can some reporter somewhere hold these people accountable? That question has to get answered. This whole idea that, you know, she went on about Abraham Lincoln and it was 28 days before the election and so he decided not to nominate anyone, said, I'm going to turn it back over to the American people. I'm sorry, the American people voted 4 years ago. And you know what? They didn't vote for 3.5 years. They voted for 4 years, right? Are you telling us that in the last few months of a presidency, our votes don't matter anymore? Our intentions don't matter anymore? That's not right. That's not how the that's not how the Constitution is constructed. So, you know, she did not press on that one. She gave her a softball. But again, there's all this pressure, and I know I've moderated 2 of these things, and there's all this pressure that you're getting next topic, because you're trying to get them on record with so many topics. The problem is they don't make any news, really, because they're just regurgitating everything they've ever told you before. And if you don't push them, and if you don't allow the back and forth exchange, then you really don't get much out of it. I guess you get a lot of ground covered, so maybe if somebody's just tuning in, they're just learning all these things, and they did cover a lot of ground. But nonetheless, you know, I didn't feel like we just kind of scratched the surface, right? And we didn't get real answers. I still don't understand what their plan is for the economy other than to tax us all and redistribute it. And they think somehow $400,000 is the magical number. God help you if you make $400,001. Boom. I guess you'd have to scale back on your work. See, that's the whole problem with their whole tax theory. They're effectively punishing work And that's the antithesis of what we should do as a country, right? We should be rewarding work. I mean, punish consumption if you want to punish something. And that's a whole different thing. Anyway, Pence at least pushed to answer in spite of the moderator, and he did well. He did do well. And you know what's great about him? He never gets mad. And again, I've interviewed him, and I've noticed this because sometimes we would be under a time crunch. They'd say, okay, you only have 20 minutes, you only have 30 minutes. And I knew I needed to get more questions in, but he had his message, and he can kind of just keep going and going and going, but he does it in a nice way. It's never, he never raises his voice. He never gets too animated. He never gets angry. He's just very calm and very presidential. Very, very presidential. And so that's important right now because this vice presidential debate, let's face it, the two possible presidents for the next 4 years are up there in age. And like I've said, I'm not an ageist, but one does have COVID-19 and the other may have dementia. I'm kidding. That's what his critics say, but he's up there in age and he does struggle a bit when it comes to speaking, although I guess he's always kind of had that problem. But, so as a result, it's a very important debate. It was an important debate. It was good to get them on record. I just want to dive in a little bit more. And I think that the American people really deserve a more thorough approach. And so this whole debate commission thing that's filled of, a bunch of oldies that kind of want to do it like they did back in the yesteryear. I'm sorry, those days are gone. You know what? There's cable, there's YouTube, right? This is the future. It's you and me talking directly. This is what I love, by the way, and I get to see all your comments. Trump, 12 more years. Oh my goodness, because you could get Donald and then Ivanka. Yeah, you could have a lot of Trump family members in there, I guess. Thank you so much, Seth. Thank you. But all of you is saying that you do seem to think that Pence won it. I do think that he was very good, very good. And I got to say, I mean, I'm biased in that I like his message. Economically speaking, he's on the money. And to me, this is, I'm sort of a one-issue girl. Like, economy matters. Because if we don't have a good economy, then we don't have much of a country. Okay, if we don't have a good economy, we don't have a great military. If we don't have a good economy, then it's harder to pay all the police officers to enforce, safety. I mean, all of these things are linked, right? But the foundation to me is how we are doing in terms of our economy. Can we enable people to live the American dream? That's what we need to do. Every single American should be afforded these opportunities. And I'm sorry, but what the left is doing right now is hurting people, giving them no hope to go forward, right? I mean, you think about kids in poor communities that can't even go to school right now. The public schools are all shut down. How is that helping? I mean, you are disenfranchising the very people that you are saying that you care so much about. The poorest Americans are the ones that are most disadvantaged in that kind of environment. And you don't want to give them a voucher because you're too concerned about the teachers' unions. You don't want to give them any chance of really climbing that ladder. You're going to keep them effectively as victims, believing that they're victims, and then they can't really live the American dream. That's not a country that we want. So, the economy matters. It really does. And it's going to be challenging because the left has really and truly painted such a horrid picture of what Donald Trump and his administration are. And so a lot of people get blinded by that, right? They don't think about, what are my taxes going to be? What might GDP look like? Can we really continue this downtrend in unemployment, which is terrific, by the way. 7.9% unemployment is great, right? 8.4% last month. This is the right trajectory. We just got to keep it up. But the way to keep it up is not to turn around and say, okay, I'm going to raise your taxes. There was a good report out of a Chicago economist this week that said raising taxes under Joe Biden would cost your average American family up to $8,000 in lost income. I don't think people really want to lose $8,000 under a Joe Biden economy. So she really couldn't answer these questions, but again, she wasn't really pushed, because they had to go to the next topic. The next topic. They started on coronavirus. That was one that was sort of, a gift, if you would, in terms of topics for Kamala Harris, because no matter how you look at it, it's pretty easy to blame the president. That's what they've done. Nobody's blaming the governors. Nobody's blaming the states. Everybody is blaming the federal government in this case. And look, I would just say it's tragic. It's awful what has happened. But do not forget, we need a strong economy to fight this thing. Okay, so if we go into this hunker down mode where they keep us all hidden at home and we cannot engage in normal life, and again, I'm not saying if you're older, if you have a pre-existing condition, then it's a different kind of thing, right? We need to protect those people. But everybody else kind of needs to just be out there with the program again. She was good at deflecting, John G says. Yes, she was very good at deflecting. Somebody's saying that, I'm going to share this. Oh, it's not coming up, but anyway, he says that Trish on TV, he liked me on TV, but YouTube has the potential to be so much bigger. You're right, it does. I've noticed that we have a chance to reach a lot of people here. I encourage you, please tell your friends about this. I just started the channel. I mean, really, like just a short time ago. We just have a few videos up, and you guys have been amazing. Really, really amazing. I mean, I'm blown away by your support, and I thank you so much for it. Really, from the bottom of my heart. It means so much to me right now, because in this cancel culture environment, I kind of like it. I like being able to just talk to you directly, as opposed to having the big institution. It's kind of nice, just you and me. There's something really pure and really simple about it. And if I can get my message to you and you can get your message to me, then it kind of feels like a home run. So please tell as many people as you know. Please subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, give the video a thumbs up, because that helps as well. But we need to keep this conversation going, because so much is at stake right now. And I don't anticipate that they'll get all three. I don't anticipate that it's going to be a Democratic sweep. But if it is, we're really going to have our work cut out for us, right? I mean, because we can't allow them to infringe on our freedoms. I mean, we need our freedoms. We need our freedom of speech. We need our freedom to protect ourselves. We need our freedom to prosper. These are three basic things. And all three of these are being challenged right now. For whatever reason, there's sort of this gravitation, if you would, by some on the left towards an authoritarian kind of government or stance, right? It's my way or the highway. They're not willing to listen to anyone else. I mean, they talk about diversity, but when it comes to intellectual diversity, they're not willing to hear another side or a different opinion. And that's a really dangerous place for us to be in as a country. How do you grow, right, as a nation, if you're not willing to have a back and forth and exchange of ideas? I loved the question at the end tonight that Susan Page asked from the little 8th grader. Mike Pence did a terrific job answering it. However, what Mike Pence said was, when it's all said and done, we're still friends. And unfortunately, I don't know if that's the case anymore. I didn't see Kamala Harris nodding her head up and down to that one, because I have a feeling she's not really going to be too chummy with Mike Pence. And I don't think there's a lot of interaction between both sides anymore. I think that that's sort of the America of the pre-Obama years. For whatever reason, Barack Obama, and I would say it's because he's an incredibly political person, he came in and he had the wind at his back, as my Irish grandmother would say, right? Wind at his back. The country was with him. They were willing to give him a chance, because it was remarkable. We had the first African-American president of the United States, something to be proud of, right, on the world stage. And you would think that we would have come together. Some of those, the issues between Black Americans, white Americans, et cetera, these race issues, you would think that some of that tension would have been resolved, especially with him, because he could stand up to some of this, right, and really be a leader and lead America in that sense. And instead, Ferguson, all these things that were happening, we increasingly were challenged on that front in ways that we hadn't seen maybe since, the 1960s. And so I think that there was a time maybe during the 70s and 80s and 90s, when Americans could actually, and I would go back to the 50s as well and the 40s, there were times when Americans just sort of respected whoever the president of the United States was. They respected their government, and government respected each other, right? You respected your colleagues, and that respect is no longer there. That is pretty evident to me. So I would only say that I loved what Mike Pence said, and it was a nice message for a little girl to hear, but we aren't that way anymore. And that to me is a problem, because it's not who we are. We ought to be able to exchange ideas and talk to each other and really kind of help each other evolve and think through issues. But that's not at all what happens. Obama divided America by race, Frank says. Yeah, I mean, as a Black American, Cece says, the Black community needs to help itself and stop relying on politicians' promises. I would agree with that, right? Because these politicians, they keep saying that we'll do this for you. We'll do this for you. You need us. You need us. And honestly, like, I think Black Americans increasingly have found themselves in a harder spot. And I go back to the socioeconomic issues, because if you're not doing enough to really enable kids in poor communities to have a better shot at a future, I mean, if you're closing their schools down right now, what chance do they have, for goodness sakes? Right? The kid in the wealthy neighborhood is going to go to private school, or his or her parents they're going to hire tutors, and the kids are being taught in pods in their neighborhood. They're going to find a solution. It's the kids that are in the poorest communities in America, that are often in minority communities, and the government in these communities is saying, like, oh no, we're doing everything we can. No, you're not. You're doing everything you can for the teachers union. You're not doing everything you can for the kids or for the people. And so the policies haven't worked. And that's tragic. It really is. And you know, look, I do put a lot of blame on Barack Obama for that, because he had this golden opportunity to really take America to the next level. And instead, it felt like we went back. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Somebody's saying, hit the thumbs up. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, that is great. You know, school choice. I agree. We need some school choice. Pence is the winner. Well, this is universal. You guys have called it. Mike Pence, the winner of tonight. You know, he was bound to be the winner, though, because he had the better policies, right? I mean, at least he's not taking us down the path of Venezuela. He's talking about law and order. He's talking about a conservative view from the Supreme Court. He's talking about low taxes, less regulation. These are all principles that we can, we should, we must embrace if we want a stronger America and a stronger future. So she, I would say, is skilled. If I were going to be, you know, like her debate coach or something, I'd probably encourage her to keep the face a little bit more neutral. Just an idea, just a suggestion. She's good. She's fine, right? I think she's better than her boss, but that's a pretty low bar. So she did a fine job. I thought Pence just has the better argument, right, when it comes to the policy front, and a better argument for taking America forward. Yeah, you guys, the smug, uppity. Yeah, and Seth Barron, thumbs up. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. He was the most articulate, Melissa says, between the two. He was very articulate, for sure. He's a smart guy, and you know, he's a good man. And he's a tremendous vice president. I think he would make a tremendous president. And you need to think about those things, right? When you're voting for the ticket, you need to think about who's in the VP slot, because there's always, God forbid, a chance that that person might be running the country. So as you think about it tonight, is it Mike Pence that you want running the country with policies of low taxation, less regulation, and sort of an even keel approach? And by the way, very strong knowledge of world events. Or is it Kamala Harris, who's frankly just more political? Right? I mean, that's what she was during the Kavanaugh hearings. We saw it. That's what she was in her own debates. I mean, think about how she went after Joe Biden so hard, to the point where I think a lot of Democrats became very disenfranchised with her. She got an initial bump in the polls right after that, but then she sunk. And she sunk because she basically boxed in a party stalwart right into a corner. I mean, it was interesting to watch. I was sitting there screaming at the TV saying, come on, Joe. You stood up for state rights over federal government. That's all you have to say. But he couldn't. And this is an issue he's weak on because he's campaigned so hard on civil rights, and yet when it came to the 1970s busing issue of putting black children into white school districts, he took the opposite view of the federal government. So an unpopular view, I would think, by so many now in the Democrat Party. And she sure shined a light on that one, right? That was the moment in the entire debate. I don't think she really had a moment tonight. Tell me if I'm wrong, if you guys found that one moment in particular was special. I liked the moment for him was when he basically said, you're entitled to your opinion, but not the facts. That I thought was a powerful moment, you know, because a lot of this is opinion. And when you start mixing the opinion with the actual facts, then you start to have a problem. Did you think she had a moment? You guys are thinking, yes. I mean, the moderator was biased and asked Pence biased questions. It was quite obvious. Yeah, you know, here's what I'd say, though. You have to just accept at this point, unfortunately, that's what the media is, right? I've seen it. I've worked in multiple media outlets, and every single place I've worked, I've seen it right up front and center. You know, even at a network that's considered sort of more right than left, you still see it. And so what that tells you is that corporate America is running things, right? And there's a viewpoint that corporate America has. And they don't want anybody challenging that view. And so once again, it's why it's important that we communicate directly. So with that said, I'm going to remind you, TrishIntel.com. TrishIntel.com, my brand new website. I'm so proud of it. Make sure you go, you check it out, and sign up for the email there, because then no one can come between us. And then on this platform as well, I'm excited about this, you know, because we have a chance to connect directly, and I don't have to deal with all the noise, shall we say. She was cringy mean, Don says. Her worst side came out. This is Kamala Harris, I assume. All about the views and not so much the news. Yeah, sorry for the repetition, people trying to get ideas to Trish. Robert Justice, what is your idea? Yep, Fox is going to the dogs. Well, you know, look, a book review. Good idea, good idea. And by the way, if I don't see your comments now, just to let you all know, I will see your comments, because I always go back and I look at everything after, and I will read these. So don't feel like if I don't shout out to you, you're not going to get heard. You definitely will. But it was an interesting night, and I guess we're going to have a few more interesting ones. I'm still saying a prayer for the president and for everybody at the White House that has been affected by this. What a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. And the timing is so incredibly unfortunate, right before the most important election, really, I think, in our lifetime. We have achieved so much. GDP has grown more than anybody thought. Unemployment has come down. I mean, we had the lowest unemployment rate in modern history, really, right? And the lowest ever for African Americans, for women, for Hispanics. And then this happened. But with the right policies in place and the right attitude, because attitude does matter, we will get through it. And so that's why it's important to take a stand and not to be distracted by all the things that they'll want to distract you with right now. Because the reality is our voices they're coming after them. I mean, they do not want certain viewpoints to be heard. And I got to tell you, fundamentally, and I always have been, I'm never offended by anybody else's point of view. I kind of welcome it. I enjoy it. I like the debating and discussing. And to me, if you're a real intellect, you shouldn't be that fragile. You should be able to absorb things, and you should be able to sort of compartmentalize, but they can't do that. They get so emotional, and they get so angry, and they think that if you support the president's policies because you actually like the idea of not being taxed up the wazoo, you like the idea of less regulation, you like the idea of, you know, having a law and order in your community, then somehow you're a bad person. That's what it's come down to. It's like this character shaming. And that's, to me, extremely, extremely unfortunate. But you know what? There's a lot of people out there that don't buy it, that don't believe in it, and they may not tell you that, right? They may not be publicly communicating with us right now on YouTube, But I know that's how they feel. And I know because I've heard from so many of you, I know that, even wherever I go now, people will come up to me and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe, and you were right. They politicized coronavirus. And I said from the start, it's wrong to do. It is so wrong because it's a terrible, terrible thing to politicize this virus. But such is the world in which we live. And sometimes these politicians will stop at nothing. Don't forget what Hillary Clinton said. She did say that Joe Biden should not concede no matter what. So I'm telling you, they'll stop at nothing to get rid of Donald Trump and to get rid of the conservative viewpoint of America right now. So keep that in mind. I'm going to see you back here tomorrow night. How about that? We're having so much fun. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you tell your friends. Make sure you go to trishintel.com. I'll see you there. Make sure you download my podcast. We've been doing great. We're in like the top 200 in America, which there's like over 9 million podcasts now. Can you believe that? That's all thanks to you guys. So keep it up. Thank you. I appreciate the support. You have no idea how much, and you have no idea how much I care right now. I really do. Have a terrific night. And yeah, I think you're right. Pence won.